What's up, beer seekers? We're back and we have a very special edition of our Industry Insiders video interview series for you tonight. We're here chatting with Operations Manager Trevor Bland and Lead Cellar and Innovation Brewer Eric Muniz of Lord Hobo Brewing Company out of Woburn, Massachusetts. And tonight we're having some Lord Hobo beers and going more in depth with the guys who make them. Guys, thank you so much for taking the time to join us tonight and chat with us.
No problem.
Yeah, no problem, guys. Glad to be here.
So let's kind of quickly go back into your backgrounds with the craft beer world and Lord Hobo in general. So Trevor, I want to start with you. How did you get into the craft beer scene, and then with Lord Hobo in general? And then Eric, same thing for you.
Yeah, kind of a wild scene, guys. I actually started as a tour guide as I was going through my master's program in chemical education. Fell in love with beer and didn't even realize that breweries had chemical labs and all that stuff. So I actually started up at CBA up in Portsmouth, and Lord Hobo was looking for a QC manager. Got down there and became the operations manager down here. It's been a wild ride. Like I come from a QC background, and Eric's taught me a lot in the cellar, and it's been pretty awesome.
I think we started almost like the same week too. I think like that we both kind of came into Lord Hobo at the same kind of summertime. I was like 3 years ago ish, kind of.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. Like when I came from a pretty big brewery, and to come down to Lord Hobo, they like 3 years ago we weren't huge, but we were like the biggest biggest growing. And like all the guys that were on the floor, they were just like, this is what we're doing. Hold on to the rocket ship. Here we go. And Eric was definitely one of them. And it's been crazy just seeing the growth that we've been doing. But yeah, it's pretty awesome.
I had a interesting early on in life. I had a really good experience. I went to Germany when I was in high school and drank some amazing beer. And then, later on, when I was legal here, got into craft beer a lot, just drinking New England. I grew up on the North Shore. So, Ipswich Ale and Cape Ann Brewing Company were big ones for us. Newburyport was another big one. Of course, Sam Adams. So it really kind of took off my love of craft beer. Went to Ireland, Scotland with my wife. So we did a lot of craft beer stuff. And I was an avid home brewer for years. And then I had an opportunity. We moved when we got married, and I had an opportunity to jump in at a small brew pub and work with a really good friend of mine. So from that brew pub, I actually went on to be a head brewer at the Beerworks half. So I jumped in about 3.5 years ago now, and it's been pretty wild. Every day there's challenges. The part I like about Cellar is, you're always trying to, it's a waiting game for a certain degree because you're waiting for the beer to get done, but there's always something to fix or some better way to do something. And Lord Hobo really kind of, fits that with as far as our growing.
So one of the questions, and we were going to dive right into a beer next, but one of the questions I was going to ask, and you guys brought it up throughout the intro there, was I read a story recently that said, I think it was 2016 in particular, which sounds like might have been the year prior to you guys. But the story said Lord Hobo grew 400% that year. What happened? In a time when there's so many craft breweries popping up all over the place, and Lord Hobo comes in and takes it to that kind of level, that's wildly impressive. What happened, and then it must have continued on from there as well.
Yeah, so Steve, I'll take that. Like, not many people can start off a brewery with a 40-barrel brew house and just unlimited capacity. And that's what Daniel basically did. He was just like, you know what, screw it. I've been owning beer bars for my entire life. I want to make my own beer. And that's what he did. And he had found this building that we have unlimited capacity. Well, it's limited, but like not that someone's starting a brewery. And it's been crazy. Like you start off with a beer called Boom Sauce, you got to back that up, pretty much. You know what I mean? And it's been wild ever since. Like, yeah. By the way, you guys have been drinking beers and like,
Yeah.
there you go.
Yeah,
I'm like holding off
Cheers,
too. I'm
yeah.
like,
That's
You
right.
don't have
Yeah,
to
I'm
hold
sorry. Sorry, guys. Where are my manners? Cheers, everybody.
Yeah.
yeah, I definitely agree. I
Okay.
mean, I think, one thing that's really helped us out, especially early on, which is one of the things that attracted me to work at Lord Hobo, was that Daniel hired a lot of really talented people that were thirsty too. Not necessarily like, their backgrounds were varied, but he picked the right people that were very thirsty and very hardworking and kind of had that drive to make this thing bigger. And whether that's, the marketing side of it and the salespeople to really go out there and hustle. And, that's what my job depends on, is that, people buying the beer. And it's one thing to make good beer and amazing beer, but it's another thing to like, there's so much competition, and he just had a lot of people doing hustle and just getting out there. And that's helped us out huge, getting our name out there. I pull in the gas station in other states and people will be like, Boom Sauce, they see my shirt and I'm like, yep. And like, you work at that brewery? I'm like, yeah. They're like, oh, I love Boom Sauce. And I'm like, thanks, dude. It's that name recognition, but it's also that footwork getting out there,
Yeah. Well, and I'm gonna pull an audible on everybody, so don't get upset. But we've already mentioned Boom Sauce twice, so I think we should start off talking about Boom Sauce. And Brandon, you showed the can already, but I've got one here as well.
Yeah.
I've got the tall one.
Yes.
So there it is. All right. So this is, as you mentioned, you started off with a beer called Boom Sauce. You clearly backed it up. It's a double IPA. So Eric or Trevor, whoever might be the mastermind behind the Boom Sauce, tell us a little bit more about this beer and what goes into making it and what the taster can expect.
Trevor?
Yeah. So Eric, I'll tell the history if you want to tell the taste profile of it.
Sure.
Yeah. So like I said, like no one starts off with a 40-barrel brew house and like unlimited capacity, and like basically Daniel wanted to fill the tanks as much as possible with as much Boom Sauce as possible. And
Smart
the
guy.
original, what's that?
Smart guy.
Yeah. And he realized pretty quickly that you couldn't just make Boom Sauce like constantly. Like you couldn't survive with one beer. So he made 3 different beers: Sealess Can, Ball and Biscuit, and Eric, help me out. What was the last one? It was basically
it wasn't C prize.
it was Consolation Prize. That's what it was.
Consolation prize, yeah.
Yeah, it was like a blend of 3 different beers. So he had 3 different tanks, and he could just blend them all together. And that's what the original Boom Sauce was. And we got more sophisticated and all that stuff. Actually created a recipe of Boom Sauce, and it's just this like delicious double IPA that at the time it was like the craze was like New England double IPAs, right?
Mm.
Like you look at Boom Sauce, it's not that hazy. And that's why we were kind of different. Like it's not that New England double IPA like the Haze Boys and stuff like that. But
It's also not very dark either. Maybe I'm completely off base with that, but I feel like, Eric also can,
Yeah.
fill me in on this as well. Like you feel like a double IPA maybe kind of leads more towards like that dark maltiness, but
Yeah, we definitely avoided that. So one thing we were pushing for when we had someone come in and we worked with recipes and iterations of this beer a lot when I first started there. And one of the things we wanted to do is keep away from it being too malty, so that like it doesn't overly fill your mouth and you want to go back to it. And I really love how this beer has evolved since I've been there. Particularly, we introduced a centrifuge about a year ago. So now we're centrifuging this beer, and consistently this beer is now like one of my favorite beers to drink. When I go out and find it, if I see it on draft, I'm like, I have to have it. I come back, I love beers like back in the day that were like, Beer Republic Racer 5, those big West Coast piney. And this has a little bit of that. This has a lot of hops. And when I say a lot of hops, this feels like we have, there's about 400 pounds of dry hops in this. for per 160 barrel, just on the dry hop. And it it shines through a lot of Amarillo. The two main hops are Amarillo and Ella, and both of those hops come together really nice to give you kind of a dank quality, but also like a fruitiness. And I think it just makes, for a beer this big, it's relatively smooth to drink, and it's not super biting, but there's enough hop to kind of make you going back for more. A certain, a thing about IPAs is always like, you want a little bit of bitterness in some IPAs, because that's the thing that kind of makes you, it's like the salty peanuts you eat. Right. You want a little bit more. You want to keep drinking it. And I think this beer does that really well.
So Eric will be pretty modest on this, but we have this thing called it's called like a hop doser. It's called a Rolec. And there's one time he was training me on this, and I was like, dude, there's no way that you're going to fit that many of hops into this one container. You're going to have to do this in 2 loads. And he's like, no, I got this. And like, he could do it. Like, it's
barely.
Like, yeah, you have like that much room to spare, but it's like, yeah, boom sauce, like there's a lot of care that goes into it. We use like specific hops for it, like to make it that great beer. So it's not like super bitter, but you taste the hops in it. So,
yeah.
And Trevor, you mentioned the name recognition up at the top. Like, is that kind of, I mean, obviously it's a fantastic beer, but how much does that name recognition of boom sauce, like the name is so catchy in general, how does that kind of play into its popularity?
Oh, for sure. I mean, like it's our flagship for a reason. Like we put the most care about into the beer because we know it's our flagship, but we write all our recipes. We do recipe optimization to mirror boom sauce. Like we want to get to that level and to have that, like that next beer just be like that, I don't know, little brother to boom sauce. Because I mean, I can't think of a name off the top of my head. That's why I'm not in marketing, but like, I can't think of a more flagship beer than boom sauce, to be honest. So every beer that we make, that we optimize, like we're like, okay, could that be like the little brother to boom sauce? For sure.
As far as like the brewing process goes, is it difficult to repeat the same thing over and over so you get that same taste, same exact experience, no matter which batch it is, or is it something that you have down to exact science?
Yeah. Yes and no. One of the challenges, which is the fun part of my job. So basically, if you don't know what lead cellar or a cellar person does, you're kind of in charge of the beer from when they knock it out and add the yeast until they package it. So everything that happens in the middle, from monitoring fermentation, at dry hopping it, transferring it, carbonating it, getting it ready for packaging, all that is in that window. And you're constantly juggling and watching and monitoring stuff, because sometimes your yeast isn't going to perform as well. Then you got to make sure that you can kind of edge it along. You might have to turn the temperature up. There's subtle things you kind of have to do to kind of coax it along. But for the most part, I feel like this beer especially, we've dialed in, like, we have a template. This is how long it takes to brew this beer. At this point, we'll know it'll be here at this day. We'll dry hop it on this day. And it kind of goes right down, pretty seamless compared to like some of the other beers, which are a little more challenging. On the actual hot side of it, it does have a lot more complex grain bill than some of the other beers. So, the brewers themselves are doing a lot more work. It's got a lot more hops on the hot side too. So, we're constantly trying to maximize how much they can knock out. So out of 40 barrels, we want to knock out at least 40 barrels. So they're monitoring everything. And if it's, not going to hit the gravity they want, they will end up knocking out a little less, because we want the quality, we want the consistency, rather than getting more and getting a less, consistent beer.
Yeah, and that's kind of what the cool thing is about boom sauce, is because we brew it so much, is that the guys can really dial it in. Like, if the water coming into the brewery itself is like a little slow, or it's a little faster, like the guys know that they can, instead of like 13 gallons a minute, they're going like 13 and a half. So like they're very dialing it in. And That's what we're trying. That's why I said like boom sauce is our like holy grail right now. Like we're trying to like dial every single recipe in because I think it is our most consistent beer right now. Just honestly because we make the most of it. So
sort of piggybacking off of that, it might transition us into a new beer. Is there one that you would say is a worthy little brother, as you said? Like, are you still trying to reach that?
Well, we've always said. You can go ahead, Eric.
Go on. Oh, I was gonna say, I think 617 is coming along. It's not. It's great. I love the name. I think if you've noticed, we've rebranded this year. It used to say Titletown, but now it's Hazy IPA. Just because we want to, make it less. Oh, there you go. Save that. It's going to be
on to that can.
worth money someday. Hang on that can. We kind of thoughts were more. A lot of times we're focused on local stuff, but we also want to keep in mind that we're distributing out, and we want these beers to be successful wherever they go. There are Red Sox fans everywhere, but that was a beer we designed specifically for Fenway, and it was literally one of those things where. I don't know if it was a Monday or something, but Daniel came in and was like, all right, we have to brew a beer for Fenway. And we're like, great. And it's got to be ready in 2 weeks. Okay. And it's going to be called 617 and it's going to be 6.17%. And we're like, okay. And we were all just sat in the room like, holy shit, we got to do this. And it was definitely the challenge to come up with a brand new beer like that fast, and we did it. And we've made some small tweaks on it over the years that we've had it now, but it's definitely I think it could be the next one to Boom Sauce in our kind of current lineup. We do have a lot of stuff working down the pipeline. We're constantly doing one-offs. The Squire series are kind of more extreme versions of things, but those are places where we can kind of stretch out and creatively and see what works and what doesn't work.
Yeah, for sure. Like 617, like it's like Eric said, like Boston 617, like everyone knows that, but as we expand to different markets, like it's a little harder to sell. So stuff like that. Hobo Life, like it's always been our like session IPA. It's like the pretty solid beer. We've got Glorious, which is an awesome beer, and we're like making some tweaks to that one as well. But personally, for me, Glorious is like one of my favorite beers. It's like a Galaxy IPA. Like you don't find that much in distribution. Like you can find like a Galaxy IPA, like a tap room or something like that. But because it's such a exclusive hop, it's hard to find. But yeah, we've got some stuff in the works, like Eric said, like our Squire series, like put that in the tap room, and it's basically everyone that tries it, they can vote on it, like they can suggest a name or whatever, and it's like part of our innovation team. Like this is what we're doing, like a little tap room series, and hey, what do you guys like? Do you not like this? Do you like it? And we'll run from there. So.
I think we threw our name or a name or two in the ring when we were there for the.
Yes.
So yeah, more on I guess on the 617, since that's one of the ones. At least I have it. It was on our list to discuss. One of the beers that we had while we were there, I think we all tried the Angelica, another New England IPA. Can you explain some of the differences between that beer and the 617, and I always find it interesting when some breweries have tons of IPAs or tons of one type of beer, and there's always subtle differences, and I'm always curious about what goes into when you're brewing them. I mean, what are the fine little details that go into making these differences happen? So I guess that's kind of where my question comes from.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Angelica, it's a different beer. We showcase the Mosaic hop for sure, and it's just everyone throws around the descriptor pillowy, but it's like when you drink that, it's just like Brandon. I see you're laughing about that. I'm like,
I am, yeah.
But it's literally like so soft in your mouth, and it's just like you're not really getting much of the malts, but you're not getting like the bitterness from the. It's just like a beautiful combination between the two of them. It's not drying, but like that aftertaste of the mosaic hops, you're just like, I want some more of that. And it's only 5.5% alcohol, so like you can have a couple of those and just like, it's.
I feel like that beer came up as, you know, one of those things where we were, you know, it has a lot more wheat in it, so it's not it's more, the wheat kind of provides more of a body and a background, kind of that pillowy sweet kind of maltiness, but not malty in like what you think about when if you drink a beer that's like, oh, this is really malty. It just kind of adds to it, and I think that the mosaic hops really just kind of kick in really nice, and they're the only hops in that dry hop, so they're kind of highlighted. It's one of my favorite hops. So I love, you know, I drink a lot of Angelica. It's like my wife's favorite beer. You know, I think it's one of those things where she'll drink it and she'll go, oh, I really like this. Like, it's almost like a surprise. And I feel like she expects it to be something that, you know, like a bigger IPA than it is. And I'm like, no, it's just, you know, it's a 5%, you know, 5.5% beer. You know, I heard, you know, when I was in the tap room earlier today, I heard someone was ordering a beer and they were like 617. Oh, what's the ABV on that? And they're like 617. Like, oh, I'll stick with the Angelica. That's only like 5.5%.
Right.
So like people think that stuff, you know, it's true. It's like that. It's like the price points, you know, if something's $9.99, you're like, sweet, it's not $10. I'm buying that. You know, I think people think of that stuff, and to have a beer like that fits in that kind of it's an IPA, but it's definitely a nice approachable. We always say that Angelica is kind of, it's a really good IPA, but it's also a good approachable IPA for people that go, oh, I don't like IPAs, they're too bitter. And I'm always like, well, try this, you know, because it's a really nice, non-bitter, not drying, you know, beer that has a lot of hop flavor. And I think it's a good kind of companion to all these other ones. You know, we still have feathers in the brewery somewhere.
That's a good story.
I was gonna say, like, I laugh because I did avoid using the term pillowy when I wrote up the brew review for Lord Hobo, but I did mention that it had a soft mouthfeel, so I did kind of like get along those same tracks. But I'm curious, like, when a brewer or when someone comes to you and says, you know, we're brewing a beer for Fenway Park, it needs to be this, it needs to be done fast. Like, what's the mindset going into that? Because that's easily no small feat whatsoever.
Yeah, guys. So that was insane. Like, so we had been developing a beer for the Encore Casino, Baccarat. It's one of our beers that we do, and we had taken our time. We vetted the recipes out and multiple iterations, and then our former VP of sales was like, "Yeah, we need one for Fenway. We need 160 barrels of it, like, tomorrow." And we just kind of like stared at him, and we're just like, okay.
Yeah.
Working overtime.
And it has to be different. Yeah, it has to be different than our other beers.
And it has to be different. Yeah. And so we basically took like the core recipe and kind of divided it and did some different hops, up the ABV, and basically Fenway came back to us and they were like, the reason we're approaching you is because we know that you have the capacity to do this. And like, even if your first iteration, second iteration isn't like your best, like, we're still gonna love it, because they had tried like a bunch of our beers and they're just like, yeah, we like, cool. They wanted a crushable, drinkable, flavorful IPA for Fenway. So like, you're sitting in the bleachers at Fenway like a Saturday afternoon, just like, you want something other than Bud Light, like all that stuff, like. And that's what we did. And we're not going to lie, like, the first two iterations weren't like the final 617. We were just like, we need to get this beer out. We need to have it. Yeah. Like, it was a good product, but it wasn't great. It wasn't to our standards. They still loved it. And they knew that if they could call on us, we could supply them. Like, they didn't want to deal with like a small craft brewery that might go out of stock. because they just didn't have the capacity. So that's how 617 really evolved, and it was a wild ride.
Yeah.
I mean,
To contrast that, that's the Encore thing was what I was saying. The contrast. So Encore, we did like 3 different versions, and off of those versions, we had separate little carboys with different dry hops, and we really like fine tuned that recipe. And we brought them in, and they came in, and they had a sommelier who like tasted all the iterations, and we were up against some other breweries for this, So, and they, we were like, brought our A game, presented. They picked out the one they wanted. That became Baccarat, and then immediately to have this contrasted with this, like, okay, do this beer.
Yeah, it was literally like second iteration. We're like, okay, we're okay with this one, and that's what 617 became. Like, so.
That's an offer like you can't refuse. Fenway comes your way and says, "We need you guys to make this." You snap into action. I mean, I can't. That must have been an exciting moment, but at the same time, you're like, oh,
good stuff.
Yeah.
It's interesting you talk about the localized places coming to you for these things, because Brandon, you can speak more to this. Brandon just moved back into the area from Philly, and like your beer, Lord Hobo, is one of the ones he was saying he was looking forward to grabbing. Even from Philadelphia, being originally from here, I think Brandon, you can speak to it, but like Lord Hobo was something you wanted to grab when you first went to the store.
So whenever I made beer runs down there, I had one specific local bottle shop that I typically tried to go to, and they usually had Boom Sauce and Glorious IPA were the 2 staples that they like always had. But it was really not much more than that. But I have had people come up from Philadelphia and say, actually, so my girlfriend's brother came up to help us move. And when he was up here, he lives in Philly. When he was up here, he said, I want to bring back a couple beers back to Philadelphia while I'm up here. I need to grab some Lord Hobo. So the reach that you guys have has just already expanded wildly and rapidly. And I imagine that's both a shock and, a pleasant surprise for everybody.
Yeah, for sure. Like I said, when I got hired, it was like, hold on to the rocket ship. And that's I can't stress that enough, because I mean, we've reached as far as California. COVID-19 is like taking us a little bit back and like come to the home markets and stuff like that. But we're not messing around. Like our brewing practices, like as Eric mentioned beforehand, like the centrifuge, like our beer is meant to last a little bit longer than like a craft brewery that's just like, hey, like drink this as soon as you can, because I mean, they don't have a $2 million canning line or something like that. And like we were talking earlier, like our Freebird, we just did a whole rebranding and all that stuff. And originally it was only available in 18 packs. And we're like, you know what? It doesn't really make a lot of sense. So let's put these into 16-ounce cans, because it's 5% alcohol. It's like a golden ale that's just like super crushable. 16-ounce cans and 12 packs, and here we go. But that's what we're trying to be smart about it. Like our national footprint, we're concentrating on the home markets, but as like the more we can go nationally, the better, because like people want to know like what is Boom Sauce like and what is behind that, for sure. So
I know you just mentioned Freebird, and we can get back to the rebrand on that. But you just said national. I was like curious, is everything Lord Hobo come from Woburn?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's a 40-barrel production brew house. We get a 10-barrel innovation system, but everything comes from Woburn.
That's really cool.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that I think I love about our brewery is like it's all, it's all contained, and it's like in one big room, and they're brewing right here. We're dry hopping and centrifuging, filtering, and they're packaging right next to us. And literally, we'll run over and help them, packaging, and or if the brewers need help, we can run up and help them. And there's a lot of cross training. I think one of the things that Trevor really pushed for the last a year ago was really start cross training our employees so that, people can like fill in our spots and it feels like a team. It feels more like, when I started there, I actually felt like it was like a motorcycle gang. Because there's lots of these vests. I'm like, what's up with all the vests? And you get vests, but that vibe was kind of like the contagious thing that like people were going out and people traveling and seeing people and be like, who is this Lord Hobo? What's going on with this Lord Hobo? And now I think over the last year we've seen more people coming in, and it feels to me like a solid production team. And as much as we've been hindered by the COVID and especially and with the front of house as well, we've kind of adjusted and pivoted and been able to do that where a lot of breweries can't. And we're producing one-off beers, and then we're producing our production beers, and then we're doing the 10-barrel beers, and it's all happening kind of simultaneously. And it's like there's all these moving parts that are always going, and even when these guys that are working 40 plus hours are still coming in on the weekend to brew their own home beer, brew beers. And there's a little group of guys that come in and do home beers because they want to learn more. And these guys know that if they, we do a homebrew competition, and we just actually, the new one is ongoing right now. But like the winner of that beer gets their beer brewed on the 10-barrel system, and it's all in-house. So it could be front of house staff or back house, and they brew a beer, and it's a blind judging. It's an open, and that beer that was Aloha came from that. The winner ended up being Aloha, and we brewed that first on the 10-barrel, and then it became a 40-barrel batch. And it's cool to see. You work with really passionate people, but not just like talking about beer. They actually want to do it. They want to get in there and
That's awesome.
Work hard up for it. So
Good stuff.
So you mentioned the Freebird rebrand. What goes into just rebranding a beer like that? I mean, Freebird's one, I'd imagine it's been there for a while. You just wanted to change things up, or and if Eric, you want to speak a little bit more to what the Freebird is now that we've mentioned. Both sides.
Yeah, I think as Trevor was saying, the Freebird kind of came out as it originally was a 10-barrel beer. When we got the 10-barrel system in, in a tap room, we realized that we had to produce more than 7 beers for a tap room, and they couldn't be all IPAs. So we're like, we actually have to make some beers that are not IPAs. So one of the first things we want to do was a golden ale, because it's it's a good, easy turnaround, quick turnaround beer. And I think the first iteration of might have been like 6.5%. It was pretty big for a golden ale, and it was well received. And then it went up to the 40-barrel, and we started to talk about like what it should be and what the market wants for a drinkable beer. And so we kind of dialed it down to 5% because it felt like that's in the wheelhouse. I think it's well balanced. It's the grain bill is pretty much all Pilsner. And so there's not a lot of maltiness to it. And then there's no dry hops. So all the hopping is in the hot side. There's minimal hopping, but just enough to balance. And I feel like it's a really good crushable. I kind of cringe at that word sometimes because I'm like, crushable. It's a good beer. It's a good solid beer. And I feel like this is a beer you can drink during the day and, while you're, doing whatever you do around your house or whatever. And I think the rebranding of it was to kind of get it more in line with the other looks. So originally the old school can had this really crazy, kind of cool. It was really cool, but it was like, it almost looked like the Firebird logo, or like a Trans Am logo. Yeah.
Steve's got all the retro cans.
Yeah, man.
I've been saving these for years.
Gonna be a Lord Hobo collector.
And we really loved it, but it was like kind of making it more of a bold kind of graphic to match the other ones. So yeah, we went with the, kind of the similar font. we were kind of shocked we got the name right, because it's literally the best thing to, if you're going to a bar to order like this beer, like you'd be like Alpha Freebird, like it's that name recognition.
Yeah.
You know, we've seen, I've over the years, especially, but even at Lord Hobo, Trevor could probably rattle off, he has to be in these meetings, I know, where we're going with one name, but we don't have the rights to that name or something. And so this one was like, wait, we get that name. That's cool. We get to use that name. And you know, it's an iconic thing in its own sense.
Yeah,
So.
it's like, I just think of Freebird is, and I cringe as Eric says, like crushable, but for a brewer that's known for New England IPAs, like Consolation Prize, Boom Sauce, all that stuff, like to have a beer that you can actually drink and like not get silly and just like actually have some flavor. Like it's not like a session IPA that's super bitter. It's not like a it's just like it's got some flavor, like that Pilsner / like aromatic like background with a little bit of like hop flavor that we add. It's just super drinkable, and you can have a bunch of it and have a good time.
This is the first time I've ever had it. I just cracked it on this interview, and I totally get what you mean by crushable.
Yeah.
Like it's easy drink. Especially I like after having the other IPA ones, like this is easy drink. Have a few. Really like just relax with it. You don't have to like think about drinking that you're drinking beer. It just goes down.
Yeah, and that's why we rolled it out with like our like, because like I said, we had like an 18-pack, and it's like you buy an 18-pack, you got to be committed. Like you got to know that you like that beer. But that's why we put it into a 12-pack at 12 ounces, and we also put it into a 16-ounce can as well. Like, because if you bring a 4-pack over to a friend's house, like you're like, yeah, let's share this. But if you bring like an 18-pack, you're just like leaving all this beer behind.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
or I'll be back real soon to finish it.
I'm staying over.
It's a shareable beer, and like it's good stuff. It's just like, yeah. Rounds our portfolio out, is what I should say.
There were two other beers that we tried while we were there, kind of on opposite ends of the spectrum. We had the New Normal, which was anything's crushable. I guess that would be 3.5%, if I remember correctly.
Crushable might be underselling that.
Yeah. But it was good. And then
really good.
There was also the Museum, which if you had one, it was like high alert, like don't let this guy out of here just yet.
I made sure I had that before I had the pizza.
Yeah.
Yes.
Pizza canceled it out.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, Museum is Daniel's favorite beer. And I've seen him down those like crushable. Like, I had a Museum, and I'm like, all right, I'm getting an Uber.
Yeah.
Like
that's one that doesn't belong in an 18-pack.
Yeah.
But yeah, both those beers are just wildly on different ends of the spectrum. Like, so the New Normal was actually a creation of our overnight brewer. He comes from a long line of brewing, and he was like, hey, I don't really have too much going on tonight. Like, mind if I brew on the 10 barrel? And we had space, and he was like, yeah, this is like my award-winning like light lager. And that's what it was. And he brewed it, and everyone's like, dude, this is really good.
Yeah.
It's the brewer's beer, right? Like you have a long day like brewing, cellaring, and you just want something just like flavorful, but like it's 3.5% alcohol.
Yeah. And again, I think and it talks to Freebird too, is that's one of the things is like, and Trevor knows this, is like we all work in a brewery that makes very hoppy beers. And so whenever we have a non-hoppy beer that we make, that's what everyone's going for their shifty. It's like we had, this Freebird or the New Normal, or, we had a Belgian table beer for a bit. And it was like a 4.5% beer. And everyone you're like, I'm hopped out right now. I think that's my go-to. We have, we'll do we have we did a stout. We did Black is Beautiful Imperial Stout that was just released. So that's in my fridge right now for later on. But I'm like, I love, I know it's not stout weather, but that sitting outside later with one of those is just gonna be fantastic. So,
since you brought it up, how'd you like the Black is Beautiful initiative? I think it's worldwide at this point. Is that something how'd you guys get involved in that?
Yeah, so Aubrey, who's our director of marketing, she brought it up to me, and Weathered Souls down in San Antonio, Texas. They're the one that started the movement, and she was like, hey, we really need to get on board with this. It's like a beer brewed to make like people of color that they face challenges every single day. And pardon my French, it's bullshit. So we wanted to get behind that. So we partnered with a local charity, and 100% of the profits go to that. And
that's incredible.
Yeah, and it's pretty cool because the label, the beer, it's loosely defined, but like the label, like everyone knows what Black is Beautiful is.
Yep.
It's almost a worldwide movement at this point to bring awareness. So Lord Hobo wanted to be part of that, and because we fully support it. So
that's awesome. Yeah, I think we went, and I think the next day I went on Instagram, and you guys had the thing that said like now available, and I was like, we missed it by a day. Like it was one of those things like you're in the right spot, just almost the right time.
Yeah. We could probably get you guys some.
Yeah.
We're all close enough. We could easily swing by too.
And again, I think one of the nice things that makes our Lord Hobo Brewery kind of unique is that we're able to do these things relatively quick, like the 617 and even in Black is Beautiful, we have kind of the ability and the means to like do some quick kind of turns and pivot really fast. And it's really nice. I think one of the reasons, like for me getting into craft beer, which I always loved, is that there seems to be kind of a parallel line between craft beer and kind of causes and being more philanthropic in what we do and what craft beer does. And I feel like part of the reason, you don't have restaurants doing like, hey, we're doing a steak tonight for this charity, as much as you have craft beer or breweries, especially going, hey, we can do this. We can put out a beer and help this cause. And it's kind of nice, for me getting into this industry and having like, worked with different causes. I'm like, this is kind of cool. It's really easy to do. And we can flip it. And, whatever charity it is, we do the pink boots every year. We did the Black is Beautiful. We're doing Ales for ALS. We're brewing a beer for them at the end of this month.
Awesome.
They also have their virtual brew fest. Yeah, Ales for ALS virtual brew fest. I'll be on that on the 22nd.
Very cool.
Perfect. Well, guys, we could easily sit here and chat about beer with you all night long, but we'll let you get going. But before we do, just kind of quickly tell everybody, where we can find Lord Hobo, where we can learn the latest updates and whatnot.
Yeah, you guys can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all that good stuff. Just search for @LordHobo. And yeah, anywhere around Mass, that's where we're located. And we're in 14 different states. I can't rattle them off right now, but but yeah, just search Lord Hobo and we're there, guys. And thank you guys so much for having us.
Thank you very
much. This is awesome.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, you guys, it's good. Can't wait to see.
Thank you guys so much. Again, pick up Lord Hobo if you're able to. Like you said, Trevor, you're in 14 other different states. So for everyone out there, visit lordhobobrewing.com. Make sure I have that right. Just check with you guys. But yeah, lordhobobrewing.com. Subscribe to our YouTube channel as well for our latest video content. And then visit us at BeerSighted.com for everything that we've done, including the Lord Hobo brew review that we put up about a week and a half ago. Check that out. Go visit. And then find us on social media as well at BeerSighted. So, guys, thank you again so much for joining us and taking the time. We really appreciate it. And cheers.
Cheers.
guys.
Double cheers.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers. Thanks, guys.